And we are back. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, hello, hello. We are back with another list. And this time we're not doing top 15s. We're not doing bottom 15s. We're doing the in-betweens. That's right. The CreamBetweens. Yeah. So these were the films that didn't make either of those bottom 15s. So think of the first one I'm about to mention as the dishonorable mention, and the last one I mention as the honorable mention. All right, we're going through every single one of these, so I'm gonna try to keep it quick here. All right, let's keep it going. All right, first is that black enough for you? This is a film about 70s blaxploitation cinema. It's a documentary. It's basically like a YouTube video essay, which I was a little disappointed by. I also didn't think that the kind of points that the narrator was trying to make were all that interesting. I actually found his narration to be quite annoying. Like, he'll kind of say statements. He'll even make sarcastic statements that he doesn't elaborate on. He just kind of moves on and keeps talking. And this film goes over so many fucking films with like Harry Belafonte, Marvin Van Peebles, people who I really admire, and he just kind of glosses over everything just because there's so much to cover. This could have been like 5 hours with how much he's trying to include in this, but he just kind of packs it all into 2, and it just feels way too rushed. And I wish this could have got this could have been a little mini series or like a 2-parter kind of thing. So a little disappointed, but still interesting. Next is She Said. This is a film about Harvey Weinstein, and we all kind of know what Harvey Weinstein did, and I just didn't really know the details of it, so I kind of used this film as a history lesson, and that's pretty much what I got. There's really nothing remarkable about this film. There's nothing awful about it either. It's just kind of there to tell that story about the writers and then some of the victims as well. So next is a documentary, Polystyrene, I Am a Cliche. This is about Polystyrene, the lead singer, vocalist, front woman of X-Ray Specs. I love X-Ray Specs, so I was very interested in this. And I think what it shows you about Polystyrene, who she was as a person, how she came about, how she became kind of a punk icon, I think that's all great. I just think the form that this documentary takes is kind of a detriment to itself. I don't think that the whole story with her daughter is all that interesting. And as a documentary, I just don't think this really works. But I appreciated the knowledge and the information that it gave me about Polystyrene herself. Next is RRR, Rise, Roar, Revolt, whatever you want to call it. I think people are really excited about this one because it's the first time that we've seen, either in a long time or really at all, a big excitement for a Bollywood/Tollywood film. This is a Tollywood film. And if you don't know, there's kind of a separate sect of Indian cinema based on regions. So in kind of the southern regions, Tollywood. And I've seen other Tollywood films before, and this essentially functioned the same way as all of them. And I don't really find this all that remarkable. I think that the story that it's telling is done in like a really, seems almost kind of disrespectful way. And the violence is so brutal at some points, but yet, like I said, it seems so silly. And I know that's kind of like the name of the game with a lot of Bollywood, Tollywood shit, because it will throw like a fucking music number and a bunch of people dancing with like colored dust like in the middle of the movie every time. But still, I don't know. I just didn't really find what the hype was about this. I think it's just the fact that there's a popular Indian film popular in the West right now that the people are excited about it. Next is Dashcam. This is a very weird movie. I think it's shit. Honestly, I think it's really hard to watch just because it just kind of keeps going with the same shit over and over again. But I kind of like how mean-spirited this film is. It kind of leaves a really just foul taste in your mouth because of the psychology of the main character and how everything just kind of happens. I've had experience with people that are like, alt-right types, and this does a great job at kind of how they react, even to something as crazy as the shit that happens in this movie. It's just no fucks given. And yeah, this is just a mean-spirited movie. Go and watch it. I'm curious as to how other people will react to it. Next is All Quiet on the Western Front. This is a remake of the Oscar winner from 1938. It's a German film. And I thought this was fine. I didn't think what it was trying to do was all that new or fresh. It was basically just saying that war is hell. And at what point do we need to keep making these annual war films that have that message and that message alone? When are we going to start asking questions as like, do we need these anymore? Like, those kinds of questions. And I will say that this film is extremely well done. The way that it's produced, the spectacle of it all, how fucking grimy and almost darkly beautiful it is. That is all great. And I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed watching it a lot. But it didn't feel right enjoying it. Because it's about suffering. It's about unnecessary death. And for me to enjoy that because of all like how pretty and good it sounds just feels wrong. So yeah, I'm getting tired of these brutal war films that come out every year. Yeah, moving on. Next is Pinocchio. This is a remake, not a remake. This is just a movie about Pinocchio. The license is out from Disney, so people are making Pinocchio movies left and right. And this is Guillermo del Toro's version of Pinocchio. And he uses stop motion. And it is beautifully animated. All the little set designs are beautiful. And so that is its greatest strength. I thought the actual iteration of this story was not necessarily all that special. I thought that the use of fascist Italy was really underutilized. It was kind of like All Quiet on the Western Front. Like, war and fascism equals bad. It's like, okay, I think we all knew that. And on top of that, there's no horror in this film. Of all people, Guillermo del Toro, I would expect to put horror in a Pinocchio movie. Like the original from the 1940 has horror in it. Like, think of the donkey scene. This doesn't? Very weird. Anyway, moving on. Turning Red. This is a Pixar film. Usually, I'm not very excited about Pixar films. I don't really have much interest in them. Not that I have anything against Pixar, but I just don't think there's much innovation going on. But I just really like the art style in this. Obviously, very reminiscent of Studio Ghibli, so maybe that's why. But I just thought the art style was really cool, and I thought the concept of the whole, growing up, puberty, getting your period kind of thing was... I think it's been done before, but I don't know. I just thought it was cool that Pixar was doing that, releasing it through Disney. Obviously, is kind of... You don't really see that bluntness from Disney. But no, I thought the majority of this film was really great, very fun to watch. I think it gets a little too epic, a little too much of a crescendo at the end there, when it starts going to like Godzilla mode. and I thought that was kind of stupid, to be honest. But other than that, I thought this was a fun film to watch. I enjoyed it. Next is kind of a similar movie in the subject matter. Is about this is a Finnish film called Hatching, and it is about a girl who finds an egg of a crow, and that egg kind of grows because she's basically like it's like under her bed or under her pillow, and she's basically like nesting it essentially, and then it grows to like this huge fucking egg, and it's like this monster that's her but also a crow, and it's like body horror and all this kind of shit. I think most people interpret this as the same thing basically as Turning Red, which I don't really think that's all that's happening here. I think that's definitely a part of it, but I think what we're seeing here is a mom in denial, or just a parent in general, in denial that her kid has some type of mental disability, like whether that's autism or whatever it is. I think that's what's happening here. I could be wrong about that, but I don't know. I just saw signs here and there in this film where I kind of interpreted it that way, and I think that's a much more interesting interpretation than just basically like, oh, puberty or coming of age, breaking away from your overbearing parents, you know, kind of thing. Next is Jackass Forever. Lots of dicks and balls, as you would expect. But surprisingly, next up is Jackass 4.5. I actually liked 4.5 better than Forever. I think what we see in Jackass 3 and 4 is that they're way too produced. I think they're trying to do too much, and it feels a little bit disconnected. 1 and 2 are like the TV show, where it just felt really candid and like just very funny, obviously. And but it just felt very genuine. 4.5 feels way more genuine than Forever, and I liked it better for that. Next is Ambulance. This is a Michael Bay flick. Michael Bay. I was actually kind of excited about this movie. I thought the trailers looked great, so I was gonna see it. I actually didn't even see it in the theater, but I saw it later in the year, and it is great for a Michael Bay movie. You know, this is basically him trying to do Fury Road or something like Speed. It's a chase sequence the entire movie, and I think he did that. I think he did it really well. He's clearly obsessed with drones. The amount of drone shots in this is unreal, but it's very entertaining. I liked how all the character development basically happens within the chase, within that small moving space. I thought that was cool, and yeah, good watch. Next is Nitram. I'm not really sure you pronounce that. It's about a Australian mass shooter from the 90s, which basically prompted the Australian government to ban guns for a long period of time. And I think this film was made because we're starting to see in Australia a kind of reintroduction of guns with less strict gun laws being passed. And so I think this film was kind of made as a reminder of why they banned guns or put a lot of restrictions on guns in the first place. And it's about an individual that is very troubled, I think he has like extreme Asperger's or something like that. And he's not really able to get along with his parents, you know, anybody his age, but he befriends this really rich older woman who kind of lives by herself. She's kind of a crazy cat lady, but the dynamic and kind of relationship with those two is really fascinating. And the fact that, you know, these are clearly real people died at the hand of this troubled young man. It's a very haunting film. It's very haunting. Caleb Landry Jones does a really good job at portraying this individual. So if this is your kind of thing, go for it. But this can be heavy. This can be hard to watch. Next is Fire of Love. This is a National Geographic documentary that is about two volcanologists that are a couple. They're married volcanologists, and they basically dedicated their life to studying volcanoes. And this film is made up of basically all archival footage, which is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, if you're looking at the poster right now, you're like, wow, that's a striking image. The entire movie is like this. The entire movie is like this, if not even more beautiful. It is unreal. And so for that, I love this film for that reason alone. But I think, documentaries, they can observe and they can document, but they can also interpret. And I don't think this film interprets enough. I think it dabbles here and there, but it just kind of cuts their story off really short. And I think there was more to tell. There's another film by Werner Herzog called Into the Inferno that's about volcanoes and kind of their spiritual, cultural impact. And I think that does a better job at interpretation in the subject of volcanology than this film does. But like I said, the visuals in this are insane. Next is Batman. Or The Batman, excuse me. I thought this was a good Batman movie. I think Robert Pattinson did his thing. I think Paul Dano did his thing. What's his name? Colin Farrell. I almost said Will Ferrell. Colin Farrell is the Penguin, unrecognizable. Zoe Kravitz was okay. But no, this is solid. I didn't really get all that hyped as other people did for this. I just thought it was a good watch. Next is Nanny. This is another film about kind of cultural, racial diaspora, this time in New York City, about a nanny who is a nanny for a very rich young couple in a New York City apartment. And this one's brutal. This one is especially brutal. It's very heartbreaking. And I think that this does a lot better job at this kind of horror concept than a lot of other films that are doing the same concept do. But I'm also getting a little fatigued by how oversaturated these films are becoming. So, good and bad. Next is Decision to Leave. This is kind of the annual. I feel like there's an annual Korean film that comes out every year that is like the big Korean film, and this is definitely the one this year. It's from Park Chan-wook. I've never seen a Park Chan-wook movie before, so I'm thinking I'm missing something here, because I watched this film and I felt like it was glaringly obvious what the film was trying to do, or I was completely missing the point. And I think if I watched other Park Chan-wook films and I kind of understand his directorial quirks and his language better, maybe I would appreciate this film more. But I just wasn't really vibing with it all that much. It reminded me a lot of Vertigo. I think it is just a Vertigo spiritual successor, but I could be wrong about that. All right, moving on. We have Top Gun Maverick. I really wasn't planning on seeing this, but it came back to the theaters, and I thought, all right, you know what? A lot of people like this. I'm just going to go see it. And the majority of the film was exactly what I was expecting. It was a bunch of buff military dudes smirking and making wisecracks at each other, like a really unnecessary love interest. And most of the movie is just kind of But that last mission sequence, holy shit, man, it is incredible. I mean, it's just incredible. I was completely blown away just because the editing and the sound design is so perfect. And this movie has like no blocking. You can't really do blocking with a film about fighter pilots in a bunch of jets. Like they're just in the cockpit. So the way that it kind of used that and then use the editing and the sound design to create something that was extremely invigorating, and it felt like you were riding a roller coaster, it's just an achievement. So just for that, this film is up there in my list. Next is Pleasure. This is a film about the porn industry. It's a very brutal kind of candid look at the porn industry. It has unsimulated sex scenes. I think a lot of the people in this are, I know a lot of people in this are in the industry themselves. And I was kind of surprised that they were in this in the first place because it's not a very kind look at the industry. Maybe they just don't care. And I don't know. I thought what this film showed was very bold, but at the same time, this film could have been made like 30 years ago and essentially be the same thing. This is the very basic part of the porn industry that doesn't really go into all like the new niches and the different sections of the porn industry that is all online now. You know, before then it was like DVDs and it was like porno magazines, and that's essentially the same business or section of the porn industry that this film is doing, which I don't think is really doing much of a service to understand what the porn industry is like right now. I mean, it's $1 billion industry, and you're showing what it was essentially like 30 years ago. So, I don't know. I feel like it could have been done a lot better, but I think this is totally worth watching. Alright, next we have Weird, an Al Yankovic story. This was fucking hilarious. It's basically just taking the piss out of these recent celebrity biopics like Bohemian Rhapsody and the Elton John movie, and there's one about Whitney Houston coming out, that are overproduced. And yeah, Weird Al is just kind of taking the piss by basically coming up with a bunch of bullshit about himself. I mean, like, some of this is like truthful in some capacity, but most of this is just made up. And he's making fun of himself, but he's also making fun of other movies that are like this. And I think it's really just great that he did this in the first place. Next is Ted K. I had no idea that this was directed by Tony Stone, who directed one of my favorite documentaries of all time called Peter and the Farm, which is a very low-key indie film, indie documentary about a kind of societal recluse. He has his own farm up in Vermont. And I just thought it was really intimate, and I thought it was very truthful, and I connected with it a lot. And so Tony Stone goes from making a little indie film like that to making a film about the most infamous societal recluse of all time in like a feature narrative length. And I thought it was cool how he used the actual writings of Ted K to structure this film and give kind of his narration through his own words. But it's a pretty basic telling. You could find out about all of this pretty much in a Wikipedia article. But I thought the cinematography was absolutely gorgeous, just like Peter and the Farm. I think that these filmmakers have a bright future ahead of them because I love Peter and the Farm. This was gorgeous, even though it was a little conventional. But the parts of it that do go out of being conventional, they try to be a bit more interpretive or surreal. They don't feel right. They feel a little silly, considering that this is about Ted K, the Unabomber, and so those felt a little bit out of place. But I'm just glad Tony Stone has a feature film, and it looks like he's going to continue to make films, and I'm very excited about that. Next is Flea. This is a Danish film about an Afghan refugee who tries to get to Sweden with his family, and it's told through animation, and I just thought it was gorgeous. I thought it was heartbreaking, and it was just a good watch. Next is Argentina 1985. This is about the when there was a military occupation in Argentina, there was a lot of war crimes being committed by torture of suspected communists or whatever. And this is about the trial that happened that would try all of these military leaders who performed these torturous war crimes. And I just thought it was told very tactfully and with care, and it was very powerful towards the end. And a great kind of history lesson. I really didn't know anything about this period of time in Argentina, so good watch. Next is Glass Onion. These films are so fun to watch. I really liked Knives Out. I wasn't expecting to because I hated The Rise of Skywalker, I think. Is that what it was? The Last Jedi? No, it was The Last Jedi. I'm sorry. The Last Jedi. I hated that movie. But then Knives Out was fucking fantastic. And this is a great little follow-up. You know, they're not like anything... They're not like pieces of fine art or anything, but they're just fun whodunits. Yes, the jokes in it are way too trendy and they'd be outdated in like 3 to 6 months if, you know, I think some of them are already outdated. But that's besides the point. Just a fun film. Great time. You don't really get whodunits like this anymore. And I'm glad to see that Rian Johnson is kind of still doing those. Next is Barbarian. This is a great horror film that came out this year. I just saw the poster for it. I was like, that looks cool. I'll go see it. It's the first time I had been at a multiplex in like months, and I'm so glad I did. I saw it in the Dolby Theater, and that was the best mistake I've ever made because this thing was awesome. I think going into it blind made it a lot better than it actually is because I did see it a second time and I didn't like it as much, but still just a solid horror film. I'm really glad I watched it in the Dolby Cinema. Next is Stars at Noon. This is from Claire Denis, one of my favorite directors. This is another one of her films that kind of just flow by very subtly, very quietly. And I can see why a lot of people didn't like this, but I kind of enjoy those films that just kind of flow by her. And this is just another one to add to that catalog. I'm glad she's not doing another thing like High Life, where she's trying to like make this grand kind of high budget shit. I like the lower budget shit. I like the subtle stuff, and especially like the on location shooting and kind of exotic places or places you don't usually see on film. I think she does that really well. Next is The Northman. This is from Robert Eggers. I didn't really have a lot of interest in this when it came out, and I ended up seeing it when it came on streaming, and I was really pleasantly surprised by it. It is awesome. And it's not awesome because it's like so bloody and like brutal and like it's pretty, that kind of thing. I think it's awesome because of how simple it is. I mean, it is basically just taking the myth and the legend that it's portraying, and it's just telling it in a very simple point A to B way. And I think that's all you need to do. You can butter it up with how pretty it looks and how brutal it is and all of that. But you don't need to complicate the story anymore. And I think Robert Eggers really understands that about fables and myths. And I just love how simple this film is. And there's another film that you're going to see later on in this list that does essentially the same thing with its own fable. And yeah, we'll get there. Next is Emily the Criminal. I very much related to this movie considering that I'm having a difficult time finding a job right now. Or a decent job, I should say. And yeah, I think anybody can relate to this movie in some capacity. I hope. If you don't, then I envy you, I guess. But anyway, I think this is just a great film about trying to get a fucking job. Just trying to get a fucking job, and you take some shortcuts and you end up making mistakes by taking those shortcuts. But that's the fucking economy that we live in right now, and I think it portrays the consequences of that economy. All right, next we have A Hero. This is from Asghar Farhadi. I've never seen one of his films before, but I'm really glad I caught this one. This is a director that loves Bresson. This is extremely Bressonian. It reminds me a lot Pickpocket, Les Argents, and the way that it tells its story is very similar. And I think films like this can be a little taxing with how much frustration they cause because the frustration that this film caused was very fatiguing, and I think it kind of egged on for a little too long. But other than that, I think this was really a great piece. Next is Good Luck to You, Leo Grand. This was a very sweet movie. It's a very sex positive movie that is about a retired older woman who has never had an orgasm, and so she hires this like fancy escort guy, and they pretty much end up just talking most of the time. Whenever they do have sex, they don't show it. They just kind of move on to the next day that they meet. And I think just this format and this idea was just fantastic. And I think it's executed really well. I think because it's so tender, the slip-ups are very noticeable. But I just love this concept, and I think they did a great job with it. And like I said, it's very sweet. Next is Benediction. This has some of the best editing that I've seen from this year. And funny enough, people hate the editing in this movie. It's one of the main gripes most other people have with it. It's very slow. It's a very methodical, but very poetic movie. It is about a poet who was in World War I, became a World War I, what do you call that? Became a World War I activist against the war, and it also happens to be gay. And I just think this was told very poetically. I think the editing style is very surreal, and the way that it uses archival footage is very creative. It reminds me a lot of Michael Almereyda films, and I just thought it was really gorgeous and extreme. I mean, it's gorgeous, but it's also extremely depressing. Considering how tortured this mind of this main character is. Next is Parallel Mothers. You really can't go wrong with an Almodovar film. I saw this at the very beginning of the year, so my thoughts are a little distant at the moment, but I remember enjoying the film for the most part, but then at the end it kind of throws you off because you realize that the entire thing is like an allegory to a Spanish like disastrous event, and or I think like something similar to the Argentina 1985, like some type of war crime type of thing, and you don't really realize that for the whole film until the end. So I feel like I misunderstood it. I would have to go back and watch it again, but I enjoyed it for the most part, and it's really hard not to enjoy Almodovar films. Next, we're getting to the end here, is Petite Maman. This is about a young girl whose mother is passing away or is passed away, and basically she meets her mother as a younger version of herself, and they become friends. And it's like a warm hug of a movie, but not like a warm hug like, oh, come here. It's more of like a grieving warm hug when you need that hug, or you don't even know you need that hug, and you get it, and you're like, damn. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the runner-up to my top 15. That is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I know, right? I wasn't expecting an animated film to be, this high up, but it is. And Puss in Boots The Last Wish is awesome. It is the resurgence, kind of the renaissance of DreamWorks, I think. And I think we're going to see a lot more of really good stuff coming from DreamWorks after this. It clearly takes a lot of inspiration from that Spider-Man film, the Into the Multiverse. But it borrows from that, and it does really great things with it. This was the film that I was talking about earlier, where I feel like it uses that same kind of Northman approach, where it's just a very simple movie, point A, B, C, and that's the whole film, and it can kind of just butter it up with style and little side stories that kind of go along with it. I was fucking crying my eyes out at the end of this. Like, there's some, like, with the bears, and the dog in this movie is so cute, and like the character is great, and yeah, I mean, this is great. And the fact that this is a lead into Shrek 5 is just very exciting. And oh my god, I wish she was more in this movie, but I feel like that would take away from how the inevitability that this character has, and that fear of inevitability. And that's death in this movie. Death itself is a character in this movie. And it's funny because at some point he literally says, no, I am not, a representative of death. I am not a metaphor. I am not an allegory. I am literally death. And you can totally see that they took that straight from The Seventh Seal, Ingmar Bergman, and the character of death, playing chess. They totally took that, and I think it's so cool that they did that. And he's really a terrifying character. This movie is so awesome. It's so awesome, and I'm really glad I caught it, because one of my two of my friends decided that I should watch this movie because they saw it, and they're like, "You got to see this," and I'm so glad I did. It's a banger. Go DreamWorks, man. And that's it. That's my list. Thanks for watching. Are we gonna hit a wall here? Yep, we've hit a wall. We've hit a wall, ladies and gentlemen, and we are going to get that top 15 to you soon. So, Cramp Lord out. Bye.